Back in the midst of time, horror movies used to look a little bit like this. And they were populated with monsters such as Frankenstein, Wolfman and Dracula. But after a while this got stale and audiences needed something a little bit closer to home to keep them scared. One film that managed to do that successfully was Rosemary's Baby, released in 1968. A film that centres on the very real fear of parenthood, isolation and responsibility. Rosemary's Baby would be so successful that it would be used as the blueprint for all psychological horror films to come. The film follows a pregnant Rosemary Woodhouse and her husband Guy, a jobbing actor, as they move into their new, huge, but slightly run-down apartment. However, soon after moving in, they are beset by mysterious occurrences stemming from a visit to their eccentric neighbours. Rosemary gets pregnant, and during the pregnancy she has a growing sense of fear and paranoia that her husband has made a terrible pact to use her child as a human sacrifice in exchange for a successful career. Now, I'd not seen this film until I randomly selected it for the film club, but I did come to the film knowing a few things already. I knew, for example, that it was Mia Farrow's breakout performance, sporting a haircut by Vidal Sassoon. I also know the film's music. I had a CD when I was younger of horror scores, and on it was this strange reworking of the Rosemary's Baby theme. And out of all the tracks on that CD, that was the most scary. It gave me nightmares. I suppose it's a sort of haunting lullaby. Having now watched the film, the thing that really strikes me about it is how different it is from other horror films from the 1960s, especially the ones that were coming out of Hollywood. So in 1960 there was Psycho, which was an attempt to bring the genre away from its classic monster roots and make horror a more visceral and tangible experience. Rosemary's Baby expands upon those themes and presents an incredibly nihilistic view of the world. Throughout it, the film has a sense of hopelessness and isolation. We get numerous wide-angle shots of Rosemary alone in the bare apartment, and even when it's fully furnished, it feels cold and uninviting. Roman Polanski was a director from outside of the Hollywood system and brought with him the real effects of World War II. In Rosemary's Baby, he presents a whole society that is crumbling, not just the one that is taking place in the story. He even goes as far as to mock up the cover of Time magazine to read, "Is God Dead?" Coming from Europe, Polanski brings with him certain elements of its cinematic history. He uses hallucinations and dream sequences to let the audience see what Rosemary is thinking and feeling, something that is ingrained in continental European cinema. If you ignore the outside shots, it could very well be taking place in Rome or even Paris. The look of the film is very different as well, moving away from the kind of dusty image of horror films. The lighting throughout feels like the setting sun of a hot summer's day, which is completely at odds to the story that is unfolding in this flat. At times, I was taken aback and I thought, you know what, this is a very sexy film to look at. Of course, the other main element to this film is Mia Farrow's performance. She wasn't exactly a well-known name in 1968, in terms of acting at least. She was, however, known as the wife of Frank Sinatra. And I think Polanski plays upon this. He takes the fresh face of innocence with a super modern haircut and subjects her to a timeless evil. Farrow is beyond brilliant in this role and completely owns the screen. She's very rarely not in shot. As for the character of Rosemary, at times she is naive, but at no point is she weak. This could be seen as the first stand against the male-dominated genre, where women were merely there to look nice and scream. With Rosemary, we have a relatable character making realistic decisions. But I hear you call, this is a horror film, and is it scary? Well, my answer is yes. It all comes down to a couple of scenes where its imagery is so unnerving and disorientating that while watching it, I found it hard not to stand up and just turn on all the lights. It isn't played for shocks or screams. It unfolds at a much more measured pace, allowing a sense of dread to slowly take you over. Nowadays, it's hard to find a horror film or psychological thriller that doesn't copy some of the elements of Rosemary's Baby. This film I highly recommend and is definitely worthy of 5 stars. Hello, thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe and to leave a comment down below if you completely disagree with me, or if you agree with me, give me a thumbs up.